You won't believe what my HOA tried to pull. Imagine getting fined not for trash on your lawn, not for loud music, but for parking a fire truck. Yeah, my fire truck. The same one I use every day as a firefighter to save lives. I wasn't blocking anyone. I wasn't breaking any laws. I parked it in front of my own house after a 24-hour shift, and guess what shows up the next morning? A violation notice from the HOA tucked under my windshield, saying I had unauthorized commercial equipment in a residential zone. No warning, no conversation, just a fine at first. I thought it had to be a mistake. I mean, who fines a firefighter for parking a fire truck at home? But when I tried talking to them, things only got worse. The HOA board acted like I was some kind of neighborhood nuisance, not someone out there literally putting out fires. They said I was setting a bad visual standard. Yeah, because a fire truck saving homes is bad for the aesthetic. But here's where things get wild. Not even 2 weeks later, during a scorching afternoon, a call came in. A fence fire. I checked the address and couldn't believe it was the same HOA board president's property. And who do you think showed up first to fight the flames? Yep, my station. My team. The same truck they tried to kick off the street. Now picture this: sirens blaring, smoke rising, and me standing with the hose in hand, facing the very people who fined me. And just when you think they might show some humility, something happened that made the entire situation take a turn no one expected. Stick around. Because this story is just getting started, then trust me, you won't want to miss what happened. Next, to really understand how we got here, my fire truck, and a burning fence, you've got to know a little more about the neighborhood and the people running the HOA. I moved into this community about 4 years ago. Quiet place, decent houses, mostly working families. Everything was fine until the board changed last year. That's when the rules suddenly got a whole lot stricter. New parking policies, fines for grass height, even letters about the color of porch lights, and leading the charge. Mr. Thompson, retired accountant, self-appointed enforcer, and president of the HOA. He never liked me much, probably because I work nights and come home in a truck that doesn't exactly blend in with the landscaping. But I never broke any real rules. I always parked legally, never blocked driveways, and was gone before most people even left for work. Still, I started getting reminders about the HOA guidelines. Then came the official violation and a fine of $250 for improper vehicle storage. I appealed it, tried to explain my job, even offered to park further down the street, but the board wouldn't budge. They said the vehicle was intimidating and lowered property values. It stung. I've spent years putting out fires, rescuing people. And now I was being treated like some sort of threat for doing my job. My neighbors were split. Some supported me quietly. Others just didn't want to get involved. I kept doing my job, though didn't let it get to me too much, until the fire call came in. It wasn't just any call. It was his fence. Flames were already crawling toward the shed by the time we pulled up. We didn't have time to think. We just went to work. But as I turned and locked eyes with Thompson standing in his yard, something about his expression didn't sit right with me. Something was off as the fire crackled and the team moved fast to contain it. I kept glancing back at Thompson. Most people would be panicking, calling for help, or at least showing some emotion, but he just stood there, arms crossed, almost like he was more annoyed than scared. That uneasy feeling grew stronger. Something about his calm didn't match. The chaos in front of him. We got the flames under control in less than 10 minutes, but that weird tension didn't go away. As I rolled up the hose, I could feel his eyes on me the whole time, like he was sizing me up. Later that evening, while cleaning the truck back at the station, one of the guys pulled me aside. He'd heard from dispatch that the fire report was already flagged for possible investigation. Apparently, there were signs the fire didn't start naturally. No lightning, no sparks from a grill, nothing. Just dry leaves and a sudden flare-up. That's when I started wondering, was this really just a freak accident? Meanwhile, word about the fire spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Suddenly, people who'd never said more than a wave were stopping by my house, asking questions. Thanking me, some even whispering about other weird finds they'd gotten from the HOA recently. One neighbor said her kid got cited for leaving a skateboard on the driveway. Another mentioned Thompson had cameras pointed at multiple homes, mine included. That's when things started to shift. I wasn't just the guy with the fire truck anymore. I was becoming the center of something bigger. A conflict not just about rules or fines, but control. And every time I thought back to Thompson's cold stare as his fence burned, I couldn't shake the thought that this wasn't over, not even close. Something deeper was going on, and I was already caught in the middle of it. The days after the fire felt like walking on a wire. Every little sound outside, every email from the HOA, every sideways glance from a neighbor, it all felt loaded. I couldn't stop thinking about that fence fire. The official report hadn't been released yet, but the whispers were getting louder. People started wondering if the fire was more than an accident. Some even joked that karma had caught up with the HOA, but underneath the laughs, there was real concern. Something was off, and it wasn't just the charred wood at the edge of our cove. Thompson's yard. One morning, I found a folded letter taped to my front door. No name, no return addressed, just a single line written in shaky handwriting. Be careful who you trust. That was it. I looked around, but didn't see anyone. It felt like a warning, or maybe a threat. Either way, I couldn't ignore it. I took it to the station, and one of the guys suggested installing a camera. That night, I did. Just in case, then came the HOA emergency meeting. Out of nowhere, they called for it, no agenda, just urgent matters regarding safety and compliance. I showed up, along with half the neighborhood. The room was packed, buzzing with energy. Thompson stood at the front, papers in hand, and the moment he started talking, my stomach dropped. He began rattling off concerning behaviors in the community, mentioning vague safety violations, referencing anonymous reports, and then he did it. He brought up the fire truck, said it posed ongoing disruption, and hinted that disciplinary action might be necessary. People started murmuring. A few even spoke up. But Thompson didn't back down. Instead, he stared right at my cold voice, said, "Some people bring danger into a neighborhood without ever realizing it." That's when I realized this wasn't just about a truck or even a fence fire. This was personal, and whatever was coming next, it was going to be big. The room fell into a heavy silence after Thompson's words. But just as I stood to respond, someone else beat me to it. Mrs. Delgado, one of the quieter neighbors who usually kept to herself, suddenly stood up and held up her phone. "Actually," she said, voice trembling but firm, "I think everyone needs to see this." She turned her phone toward the crowd, playing a short clip. At first, it was just grainy footage, then the image sharpened. There, plain as day, was Thompson himself, walking around his backyard late at night. He was carrying what looked like a gas can. A few frames later, he crouched near the fence, the same one that went up in flames, and then walked quickly back inside. The date stamp. The night before the fire. The room exploded. People started shouting, some demanding answers, others asking if it was fake. Thompson's face went pale. He didn't say a word. He just grabbed his papers and tried to leave the meeting early, but the crowd wasn't having it. I stood frozen. I knew something was off about him during the fire, but this made no sense. Why would he set his own fence on fire? To frame Me, to stir fear in the neighborhood. Or maybe to push through stricter HOA policies under the cover of safety concerns. That clip changed everything. Suddenly, the narrative flipped. I wasn't the one under suspicion anymore, he was. But here's where things took an even darker turn. The very next morning, my security camera app sent me a motion alert from my front porch. When I checked the footage, it showed someone in a hoodie tampering with my mailbox. They didn't take anything, but they left a small envelope. Inside was a printed photo of me standing in front of the burning fence. No note, no explanation, just that photo. And that's when I realized this was much bigger than a grudge. Someone was watching me closely. And whoever it was, they wanted me to know it. That photo shook me. Not just because someone had clearly been watching, but because it meant this wasn't just Thompson acting alone anymore. Someone else was involved, and they had access to my home. I took the envelope straight to the police. I handed over the photo, the video from my doorbell cam, and explained everything from the bogus HOA fine to the night of the fire. The officer listened carefully and promised they'd open a formal investigation. Later that week, I got a call. They'd pulled traffic camera footage from the night before the fire. It showed a black SUV parked down the block from Thompson's house. The plates matched a vehicle registered to the HOA's vice president, Ms. Keller. That's when the full picture finally clicked. The fine, the meeting, the fire. It had all been staged, not just by Thompson, but by the board. They wanted to scare the neighborhood, push through stricter control measures, and paint me as the reckless outsider standing in their way, my fire truck. Just the excuse they needed. But they didn't expect the neighborhood to push back. After the footage came out, publicly thanks to Mrs. Delgado, who uploaded it to the community Facebook group, the whole neighborhood turned on the board. A petition to remove the HOA leaders circulated, and within days, the board was forced to resign. Police officially launched a case into possible insurance fraud and attempted framing. Thompson and Keller were both questioned, and the investigation is still ongoing. You'd think that would be the end, right? But here's the twist. Right after the board stepped down, I got another letter. No envelope this time. Just a single sheet taped to the inside of my back fence. Firefighters play with flames. Careful, you don't get burned. So yeah, I cleared my name. I exposed the lies. But somewhere out there, someone's still watching. And they're not done yet. After that final warning, I knew it was time to take a step back and protect what mattered most: my family, my home, and my peace of mind. I upgraded my home security, changed routines, and worked with local authorities to make sure any further threats were documented. Turns out, the police had already connected the strange letters and the fire incident to a deeper HOA scandal involving misuse of funds and fake safety violations meant to manipulate property values. While the investigation is still ongoing, both Thompson and Keller have lawyered up, and the neighborhood has rallied for new leadership. The fire truck? It's no longer parked on my street, not because of fear, but because the department found a designated spot nearby just to avoid any more drama. But my neighbors now know exactly why it was there, and more importantly, they know I was just doing my job. That silent support I felt in the beginning, it grew into something stronger: real community. People started speaking up, sharing their own stories of unfair treatment, and for the first time in a while, it felt like we were living in a neighborhood again, not under watch. Looking back, the HOA fine over my fire truck was never just about a rule. It was about control, power, and intimidation. But the moment someone tried to use fear and lies to manipulate good people, the truth fought back. And in the end, that truth brought a whole community together. So yeah, it started with a ridiculous HOA fine, but it ended with accountability, unity, and a reminder: Sometimes standing your ground doesn't just protect you, it protects everyone around you. And as for whoever left that last note, let them watch. I'm not hiding. I'm still Harand. I'm still ready to serve.